All right, I want to do a quick video on just a couple of workflows for testing your responsive e-learning. I get a question every now and then from students or other clients about the best or easiest ways to be able to test the content that you're creating across mobile devices or other computers or even between coworkers. And I just wanted to give a couple of workflows that I use. The point here too is these workflows aren't specific to e-learning. These are things that I do when I'm just doing regular web development as well. And that's kind of the good thing about the entrance of responsive e-learning or our kind of m-learning where we're more device focused is a lot of the workflows that we've been doing for years on the web side of things directly apply now to what we're doing with e-learning. So there's a lot of stuff out there that you can leverage. You don't have to recreate the wheel. As I said, though, this applies to anything, any kind of web content, but I'm going to kind of do it specifically for e-learning and even more specifically with Captivate content. As you'll see, I've got just a super simple Captivate file here, with 3 breakpoints set up, and all I'm doing on each breakpoint is switching out an image. So it's not really any kind of crazy responsive course here. This is just for me to be able to demo. Now, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about what's inside of Captivate. And just to give you a quick little agenda of what I'm going to be talking about, I've got a few things I want to cover. I'm going to talk about inside of Captivate, what you can do. And then I'm going to kind of mix in some other tools as well. How to use the browser developer tools for testing, how to use Adobe's Edge Inspect tool that is integrated with Captivate, but you can also test outside of Captivate with it. And then a few other kind of non-Adobe tools, but other ways that you can preview your content using your IP address. And we'll talk about what that means. And even like some browser-specific things like the ability to just open up a recent tab that in Google Chrome on your phone or device, and then a third-party website that you can upload content to that you may not be aware of. It makes it really easy to just kind of throw some content up on the web and be able to test it. But let's look inside of Captivate first. Most of you that have been using Captivate know under the preview menu as of Captivate 8, you've got this option in your responsive project to preview your project. When you launch this, it pops you into the web browser, and it's not just your course you're looking at. You're looking at your course kind of wrapped in this responsive container. And you'll see the breakpoints at the top here that you can kind of click between, and all this is doing is resizing the sort of faked viewport of what we're looking at, simulating what it would look like at a width of 360 in this case. There's also this nice slider that lets you kind of open or widen and narrow the viewport to a very specific width if you wanted to look at what's happening. Nice little tool for previewing. If you didn't notice this, this is actually previewing a separate page that's getting published, this rindex.html file. And it's just, like I said, a secret little wrapper that the Captivate team included to make it easy for you to quickly preview different widths and what your content would look like without having to get too complicated in the workflow. If you were to just look at the index file, you'd be looking at your Captivate course on its own. Just as a little FYI, that's what's happening there. Now, if I go back to Captivate and I choose a different option called Preview Edge Inspect, this isn't going to do anything by default aside from just launch the course in the index file. We don't have that wrapper anymore. So you're just previewing the course on its own. This didn't do anything with Edge Inspect. You don't have to have Edge Inspect. This is just previewing the course by itself. If you want to simulate any responsiveness, you pretty much just have to resize your browser and kind of do it that way. You'll notice the same responsive effects happen here. But before I actually get into Edge Inspect and how that works with Captivate, I wanted to show you the browser developer tools because they're extremely robust and they can do some pretty cool things, and you don't have to be using a device or have a device. I'm in Google Chrome right now. This applies to Safari, it applies to Firefox, it applies to Internet Explorer, basically all the way back to version 7, but the newer versions of Internet Explorer have better tools in them. Every web browser has a set of browser developer tools, and these are the tools that a lot of web developers use to be able to test their designs and fix bugs and that kind of thing. So in Google Chrome, I'm just going to go to the little flyout menu here, and let me actually just resize this a little bit so it's on the screen. I'm going to go down to More Tools, and of course that goes off screen as well, so let me just resize this a little bit more. Go to More Tools, and I'm going to go to the Developer Tools. Now again, if you're in Safari, there's a developer menu that you open up the developer tools there. If you're in Internet Explorer, you can just hit F11 to open up your developer tools, or find it in the menu, although I don't know off the top of my head where that is. So every browser has these developer tools. When you open the developer tools, you have to be a little brave because you're going to see some craziness that you might not recognize, or it's this, scary code that, we don't want to look at, we don't want to have anything to do with. So don't worry about that. We're not going to be doing anything with code. The only thing I want to do with the developer tools is help test the kind of mobile design or the responsive nature of my e-learning. Now, the first thing I'm going to do in my case, this is just aesthetic. Chrome has this little button over here where I can have my developer tools be docked on the right side of the screen. And I kind of prefer this because then it kind of looks more like a mobile device. It's a little more narrow on the left-hand side. And I can even still do my little resizing here. But this still doesn't really look like a mobile device. Chrome has this little mobile phone looking button here that if you press it, it actually launches this little configuration tool where I can select a device, for example a Samsung Galaxy Note 3, and it resizes the viewable area to be that device. Now, it doesn't look good right now because when you change devices, sometimes you can see this little yellow message here like you need to reload your browser. So I'm just going to hit refresh, and now it looks a little bit more correct. I can rotate the aspect ratio, and you can see how it now kind of conforms and fits the screen a little nicer in landscape mode versus portrait mode. But this again lets you go through a lot of different devices. What does this look like on an iPhone 6? What does it look like on an iPhone 4? And again, I encourage you to refresh to kind of see, or just make sure you're looking at the correct version of it. Another super useful thing that this does that you may not really think about is it gives you the ability to throttle the connection. So I can simulate a good 3G connection. This is something you really want to be aware of because even though we've got really fast Wi-Fi connections and we got 4G LTE, not everyone is always on that fast of a connection. And so, especially if your audience is more global and outside of the US, this is an important thing to kind of recognize. How long is it going to take this content to download? So right now I'm simulating an iPhone 4 and maybe I'll switch it back to a 6 or something. 3G connection. If I hit refresh, again, you'll see it's going to load for a little bit because there's a little bit of overhead that has to be loaded, some JavaScript and various other things. Now it popped in. Bigger courses with audio, video, they might take longer to load, or as they're loading subsequent slides or assets, we just want to see what that experience is going to be like for our end user. So those are some things to think about when you're testing your responsive design. And the great thing here is this is still all done in the browser on my computer. Now I'm going to close down these developer tools here. And I'll just close the course for right now too and go back to Captivate. The thing in this menu that says Adobe Edge Inspect is this additional tool that Adobe has. So I'm going to launch the course right now. And again, this just opened the course in the browser. Adobe Edge Inspect, if you don't have it, can be downloaded from Adobe's website. It comes with the Creative Cloud. You might already have it installed and not know about it. You also might not be able to install this, and that's okay because I'm going to show you how you can kind of do the same thing with this without having Edge Inspect shortly. But I want to show you Edge Inspect first. There's a little bit of setup that has to happen. Step one is you need to have this downloaded on your laptop. And again, Windows or Mac, doesn't matter. I'm on a Mac right now, so that's what you're looking at, but everything would be the exact same on Windows. Step two is you need to install the Google browser extension. And this is something that's a limitation of Edge Inspect. It only works with Google Chrome. And that's why I'll show you a way you can get around it if you don't have Chrome, or you're not able to have Edge Inspect installed. But you need to get a Chrome the extension. It's free. You just have to download it from the Chrome store. They have a little link to it right here. And lastly, you need to install it on your mobile device. There's a free mobile app that needs to be downloaded. And again, it's from the iOS, Android, or Kindle Fire would be supported. If I show you here let me just pop this open real quick. I've got a webcam hooked up to show my phone here. Resize this. I've got Edge Inspect installed there and sitting on my phone. And again, Android, Kindle Fire, iOS, doesn't matter what your platform is. What we're going to do, and what Edge Inspect does, is any URL that you're looking at on your computer, it will show on the device. And the device will just kind of follow your laptop, which makes it really easy to preview. Now, I have to make sure I start Edge Inspect on my desktop. And so wherever your applications are, again, applications folder on a Mac, start menu, or program files on Windows, I'm just going to start up Edge Inspect. This doesn't look like anything, it's just kind of a task that's running behind the scenes, but you'll notice once I start it, my browser plugin is now lit up and is working. Next, I need to actually open this on my device. So let me hop back to my phone here and launch Edge Inspect. Now, there's one caveat to Edge Inspect that even if you have it installed, it might not work. You have to be on the exact same Wi-Fi connection as your laptop. So both your phone or tablet or whatever you're using as a mobile device has to be on the same Wi-Fi connection, because then they're going to try to find each other. So right now, Edge Inspect is saying, hey, I see two computers on this network that have Edge Inspect running, my coworker Mark, and then also myself. So I can tap on myself, who I want to connect to. The first time you connect, it gives you a code, and you'll see that Edge Inspect on the browser plugin has a little plus here. It wants me to type in that code. And this is just kind of like a security thing to make sure that you're the same, or you're connecting to your computer and no one else is trying to connect to it. So once you have done this the first time, it'll remember you. The other cool thing about Edge Inspect is I could have 10 devices sitting on my desktop that I'm connecting all at once. So you're not limited to a single device. But I've got that code entered. And what I want you to notice now is, now that they are paired, my phone is going to try to pull up whatever website I'm currently looking at. And I'm looking at Adobe's website right now, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But I'm going to switch my tab to my course. Now the phone is going to there, and I've got the GPS enabled in this course, so it's asking me to share the location, which is totally fine. But you'll notice the course now loads up. I can hit play, and because of the width of my screen, I'm looking at the mobile phone breakpoint within my responsive course. If I were to rotate my phone, you would see it's going to actually flip to the tablet version of my course, but there's, it's not a great way to look at the course this way because there isn't a lot of height. So I'm going to stay in portrait mode here. So that's what Edge Inspect does. And this is really kind of the nice thing about Edge Inspect, is if you get it installed and set up, it's not too tricky to do. Once it's in there and in place, you can really have a quick testing workflow where I could, hop back into Captivate and, maybe I want to, put a shape, right next to this for whatever reason I'm doing here. And then again at the tablet layout, the shape is maybe going to be below here. And then in the mobile layout, the shape will be a little bigger and look like that. So I've just added some content. Well, when I go back to test, I'm going to preview in Edge Inspect, which again, just launching the browser window. But as soon as that launches, Captivate, as soon as it launches a Captivate file, my phone is going to want to load that up and look at that because it's in the browser. And there I'm looking at my change. Really, really nice workflow. Now, there's a lot of you out there who maybe don't have Edge Inspect, can't get it installed, and are jealous of this workflow. So, you can actually kind of do the same thing pretty easily if you know your IP address. Now, this is a part that gets a little tricky because you got to find your IP address. If you're on a Mac, it's pretty easy. I can go into my system preferences and just go into the network area, and there's the IP address right there. 192.168.16.33. And this is my local IP address on my network. If you're on Windows, what you're going to want to do is open up a command prompt. I should actually say you can go into your network settings in your control panel on Windows and see it there, but a lot of times the control panel's locked down depending on your IT security, so you can't actually use the control panel. So in that case, try to open the command prompt, and then once that's open, you can just, from the start menu, type in CMD, and that will open up the command prompt. Once you're in the command prompt, type in ipconfig. It'll spit out a bunch of stuff, and what you're looking for is your IP4 address. It's just going to be a sequence of 4 numbers with a period between them. So that's what you want to get. You need to find that address. Once you know that address, you can actually browse your computer from your phone. So again, this will seem a little weird, but let me show you for a second the URL that I was looking at. I'm just going to open this in a text editor here to kind of make it easier to see. The URL that I was browsing when I was testing my course had this local host in front of it. And I always tell people this is one of my favorite features of Captivate 8, that they started testing content using a local development server. They're literally running a web server behind the scenes on your computer. Localhost just kind of lets the computer refer to itself. If you replace localhost with your IP address, you are going to be able to browse this server from anywhere else on the network. Okay, so bear with me a second here. So let me just copy this URL and paste it. Then I'm going to go back to my system preferences and copy that IP address, or you could type it in yourself, and I'm just replacing the local host, nothing else. Once I have that replaced, if you want to make sure you did it right or it worked, just take that new URL and go right back to your browser and put it in there. And it should work. Because again, your IP address and localhost are the same thing. They're referring to your computer. This is a URL now that you can actually open on your device, and it's kind of a long URL, so maybe you'd want to email it to yourself or text it to yourself versus try to type it in on your device. What I'm actually doing here is opening up Safari, and you can see Safari in the URL bar is browsing my course. You can't see the full URL unless I actually kind of click into there, but the whole course can be previewed using this IP address. And if I, again, run it, there I'm seeing my content. Again, I'm not using Edge Inspect. I'm not using any kind of fancy technology. I'm just browsing this file using the IP address in place of localhost. And this is another way that you can test your content. One thing about Captivate that gets a little frustrating here is the URL every time you test it changes. And now I'm going to show you this Chrome recent tab feature that might be helpful to fix this issue, or to help with this issue, I should say. It's not really a problem. There's a very specific reason that they do it. But what I mean by that URL changing is this little temporary folder that gets created changes every single time you run your course. So if I were to go down to Captivate, again, make a change. I'll just change the fill color to something else here. Preview my course again. This is a separate URL now. So the course on my phone, if I tried to look at that and just hit refresh or something in the browser, I'm not going to see the new content because it's actually a different course. It's a different URL that I created. So I'd have to keep resending myself this URL, which would get to be pretty old pretty fast. Google Chrome has this nice feature called recent tabs. Recent tabs, basically, if you're signed into Google Chrome both on your computer and on your phone, it's going to show you what you have open. And you can see the tabs that I currently have open on my desktop are showing up listed on my device. The only issue, though, is that little local host issue that you're seeing there. Because if I were to try to tap on that tab to look at it, this isn't going to work because localhost doesn't exist on the phone. I need to use the IP address. So again, I'm replacing localhost with my IP address. And I run it here. Again, I'm going to be seeing the updated version. And back on my device, now you'll notice the recent tab actually has the IP address in it. So if I were to tap on that, it'll pull itself up. And so this is kind of like Edge Inspect from the standpoint that your phone will see that you have this tab open and you'll be able to just tap on it on the phone to refresh it. And this is just a feature of Google Chrome. This isn't any extra software that you need installed. There are more efficient workflows for this. There's some great developer plugins like Live Reload that can automate some of this, but they take quite a bit of tooling to get set up, and something that's not typically what an e-learning author wants to do. So we can leverage some of these tools within the browser to just make our life a little easier for testing. Now, everything that I've shown up to this point has been testing, but only if you're on the same network. And oftentimes at companies, you're not on the same network. And what I mean by that is your laptop might be on a different network than your mobile device. So you're not able to see the content from your device. And in that case, you're going to need to put what you publish out somewhere else. On some other server. Some companies have like a testing server that they have locally that they can use, some network drive. People will use Dropbox. There's lots of solutions for this. But I wanted to show you kind of a unique one called DivShot. The reason I like this one is because this is a real live web server that you can use for anything web related, and you don't have to understand what FTP is, or you don't have to have anything fancy set up to make this work. There are e-learning specific workflows that might be more beneficial. Some of you may have worked with like SCORM Cloud that lets you just upload a file and you have some free space that you can use to test your e-learning content. There's other LMSs that you can use for that, and this isn't LMS specific. This is just a web server, and the reason I like it is it's great just for hosting content that you want people to play around with. You don't have to give them logins to look at it. You don't have to enroll them. Those are things that, when we want to test a design, we want to make it as easy as possible. So let me hop over to DivShot and just kind of show you divshot.com. This is a free service, although once you get to do, or once you have, if you want some extra features, you can of course give them money and you get more support. But I'm just using the free version of it. I'm going to log myself in here. And the first thing that you'll need to do when you log in is make a new app. And this isn't a mobile app, this is just a website that you're going to make. So you click Create App and you type in whatever you want it to be. I actually have one created already called Captivate demo, so I'm not going to remake this, but you could type in anything you want here. I could put in, Dustin website, if that isn't taken already, and it's going to actually make a URL for you. Now, like I said, I've got this Captivate demo already created here, so I'm going to click on that one. There's some terminology associated with this that you don't really have to worry about. Development, staging, production. These are three different servers that are there. The idea is development is where you're working on something, and then when you want to test it, you move it to staging, and then when you're ready to go live, you put it in production. None of that matters for what we're doing right now. I'm just going to worry about the development server. If I click on that, you can see I've already published something to it, but I'm going to actually upload something new. It wants me just to drag a file into here. Well, what am I going to drag? I'm going to go back to Captivate, and I am going to publish out my course as a zip file. So I'm going to zip everything up and publish that out. I've already done that ahead of time here, so let me go to my desktop. Here's that zip file sitting there. From there, I need to take that zip file and upload it to DivShot. So all I'm going to do is click and drag it into the window here. It's going to start uploading it, which depending on the size of your course might take a little bit of time. So here it finished uploading, and you can see I get a little message at the top that mentioned it's ready to preview. There is a link here to visit the app. And if I open this up, you'll see it actually previews it using this URL, development.captivatedemo.divshot.io. This is a live URL, a live site. I could send this link to anyone, anywhere. I'm going to leave this up here, so you watching this video could even go to this link and see the one slide magic that I've got here. Oh, and by the way, this one that I had published out was before I put the boxes in it, so obviously we're not seeing that content. But the point is, this is a really easy place for me to just throw content that I want to try out. If I'm not able to browse this device on my local network, I can put it up on a site like DivShot and send this URL to my devices and test it that way. And again, DivShot being free for our purposes that we need it is a good alternative. There's other places to host it. As I said, if you've got an LMS you want to put it into, great, but we want to put it somewhere where we have this ability to see it. So hopefully that was just a few different maybe unique ways that you haven't seen how to test Captivate content or your responsive e-learning. Like I said, it doesn't apply just for Captivate. This would work for any web content or any other tool that you're using. You could be able to test some of your content and start getting a feel for how they're going to translate to mobile devices.